All right. Welcome back, people.
We're
doing a bonus chapter. Why? Because people are freaking the F out.
Corona time.
Corona time. We should have some Coronas here.
We should.
I don't want to make light of it.
From now on, yes.
This is I'm being a duck right now. You know why I'm being a duck? What being a duck means? Yeah, you can't see my legs. Like I'm cool and calm and collected on the surface.
Yeah.
And my feet are kicking like hell, like a lot of people. So,
or are you a sitting duck?
Yeah, you are not funny. I'm Josh Sigman, and I'm a mortgage lender. I'm also a geek for money, not just earning it and saving it, but literally everything about it. I love that money has rules. It has its truths. I love investment strategies, and I love making money work for us. For so many, money is emotional. For me, it's logical, like a puzzle. My passion is also helping others with their money. I love looking at people's finances, dissecting their puzzle, and rebuilding with strategy and purpose, and I'm really good at it. I'm making this podcast about my money strategies, not the things that are written in books or sold in programs. It's a podcast outlining the lessons I've learned and used for the past 15 years. These strategies help me and those who use them save more, give more, create wealth, and retire early. Let me teach you how to build your net worth. You ready? Welcome to Sigman Sense. So, I mean, we got to talk about what's going on in the world today because I think people there's a lot of information. There's a lot of misinformation. There's, everyone's got an opinion. So I think we should share ours.
Okay.
But I also think we need to make sure we educate some people on what's happening and what the terms are that are being thrown around.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a recession? Are we in a recession? No, not yet. Could we possibly? What's the difference between a correction versus a bear market? People don't really understand that. Should I sell everything? My stock market is off by 25%, 30% almost in some cases, depending on which index you're looking at. And crap, on top of that, there's this virus that's spreading around the world. And should we just sell everything and move out to the ranch, right?
I mean, if it was up to Randy Rouse, we would be on a ranch.
Well, Randy Rouse is a pretty smart guy. I don't know where to start other than to say that making decisions about money when you're in an emotional state, which is a fear-based state, usually is a bad choice.
Okay.
So let's just start there.
Let's start there.
And I think we start with the education piece. So we've had an unbelievable run in the stock market, right? We've had an 11, 12-year run in the stock market. So, if you go back 2007, 2008, you hit an index of around 6,000 to 7,000. January, it was almost or right at 30,000, January 1st, so 29,000 and change. So bottom line is, if you had money in the stock market, if you got lucky and you picked the literally the lowest day ever, in that 2007-8 timeframe, you had, 4X, 400% return on your investment.
Yeah.
So how would we say the stock market's done over the last decade and a quarter?
I mean, over the last decade? Yeah, really well.
Really
well.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. So were we expecting it to fall? Yes. And we've been it's funny that we,
but were we?
I think that everyone would hope that it didn't, but the market's been expecting another correction. So this is where the education piece comes in, that people need to understand what we're really looking at and what's normal, what's not normal. Yes, it's exasperated because of the coronavirus, but let's start with corrections. Okay. Corrections are defined as a more than 10% decrease in the stock market.
Okay. More than 10%.
More than 10%. So 9%, not correction, 10%, 11%. Yes. So 10 to 20% is typically what you would consider a correction. Okay. 20% or more is what you would call a bear market. Okay. So, separate of a bull market. Bull market would be when market's going up. Bear market has gone down by 20%. Okay.
What? Say it again.
The
bear market.
Bear market is when the market has gone down by more than 20%.
Okay.
So correction 10%, bear market 20%. It's kind of the common terminology. And then you go separate than that is what's a recession? Well, a recession is when you have two back-to-back quarters of negative economic activity. So down economic activity compared to previous quarters, right? That's where you would have a recession. Okay.
Okay.
So are we in a recession yet? No, we haven't had one quarter of negative economic activity, and we would need 2 back to back. So
6 months.
6 months,
of falling.
Of falling, yeah. Could that happen? Yeah. I mean, I would, if you asked me 3 weeks ago, the answer was I didn't think we'd have it.
Right.
Based on what's happening globally with a unknown virus that's really scaring a lot of people. The stock market's not the issue. It's going to be the people that are staying home and not getting a paycheck.
Right.
That can't then spend that money that they didn't get. That then requires businesses to shut down and small business owners like restaurateurs and bars to shut.
Yeah.
That's where the potential of a recession really comes from. But were we expecting a decrease in the stock market? Yes. And people have been talking about at least a correction, if not a bear, for about 2 years. Because I've been asked about that over and over and over and over again. Like, is this a good year to buy? Is this a good year to sell? Should I buy in the stock market? Should I not? Okay. So here's the global information you'll be given from 90% of financial planners out there in regards to should you sell out of the stock market right now. If you are not planning on using that money for at least 3 years,
okay,
long-term, planned on retirement, you should absolutely not sell out of the stock market unless you are forced to, meaning you have no other options.
Okay.
Right? So, of course, if you have zero money in the bank, if you've maxed out your credit, if you got zero reserves, you're going to go to the stock market.
Have to.
But in the absence of that, the answer is leave it.
Leave it
because
and
you are choosing to take money out at a third discount, right? What was worth $100 January 1st is worth, in a lot of cases, between 25 and $30 less, so 70 to 75 bucks today.
Wow.
This is a good thing to write down in general, pay attention to, guys, which is you make money in how you buy properties. You make money in how you sell stocks, right? Like, you don't make money in the purchase of the stock, you make money in the sale of the stock. You don't make money in the sale of real estate, you make it in the purchase. It's the opposite. Okay.
So how many people do you think are out there actively selling stuff right now, selling their stocks?
A lot.
A lot?
And I know that.
Okay.
I know that because there's illiquidity in the marketplace. So,
okay.
Let me explain kind of what happens in a big picture so people understand this better.
Yeah.
So 8 years are going by, so go back to 2018 and you've already had now a 10-year run the stock market. Okay. And people have just use easy numbers. They've got $100,000 in the market and they look back and they're like, crap, I've made 300% return. So I want to put more money in the stock market because I'm going to get this easy 10% return every year or whatever, right? Not true, but that's the view in 2018. So people start to leverage their money. So you can margin out your money, which basically means that if you've got 100,000, you could ask the Schwab or the Edward Jones to lend you the same amount of money and put it in the stock market, right? Because if $100,000 in 2019, which remember it was over 20% return for most people's portfolio last year, if $100,000 made you 20, then would it be great if I borrowed 100? It wasn't even my money, and I made 40,000 on the 100,000 bucks. Yeah. Right. So now it looks like it's a 40% return. So that all is well and good while stocks go up, which is never permanent. Which is why if you're going to play that game, you better be an expert and understand what the risks are, because when the stock market started to fall in January and going into February faster and faster, there's margin calls. And margin calls are, hey, dude, like you have to pay back this loan because you don't have enough collateral to protect it anymore. Yeah. Well, imagine now that if you margin this money out, when you go to sell, you didn't get your $100,000 back. If the market went down by 30, it really went down by 60. Right. Right. So you might get $40 back of your $100 or $40,000 of your $100,000. Right. Yeah. And it's a forced call. It's a margin call because the asset went down. So the leverage has to go down with it. Yeah. Okay. Well, then that makes the stock market pile on faster and faster because margin calls are happening and people are getting scared and they watch, the first day was a 2,000 point drop. It was the worst day, since, I think it was 87 or whatever it was. It was one of the top 3 worst days ever as far as falls. which was representative at the time of a 3% drop in the market in a single day.
Yeah.
Which just at that time meant that we just didn't make money this year because we made about 3% in January. So in one day's time, you lost the whole 3%.
So that was like mid or end of February. Right?
Yeah, mid-February, I think is when that actually happened. I think it was February 9th for some reason that sticks in my head. Could be wrong, but yeah, mid-February.
Yeah.
My point though in saying that is, so at that point, okay, not a big deal to the average person because you just didn't make money yet this year. But now people are getting more scared, right? So it's like trying to catch a falling knife. At what point is it about to hit the bottom where you grab the hilt, or are you still grabbing the blade? It's really not a fun experience to try and catch a falling knife. And that's what's been this free fall in the stock market. So now you're adding on. So the correction was expected, be clear. So everyone that's, on Wall Street was definitely expecting a correction this year. They probably thought it was going to happen later in the year, but they were expecting a correction because it's been so big of a run for so long. We're just due. And all of a sudden, you look back and say, well, what happened in China, right?
Right.
So obviously coronavirus, it looks like originated in Wuhan, China. And that was kind of the epicenter. And all of a sudden, China does the right thing by locking down its borders, locking down some cities first, then locking down in major cities. The problem with that is a lot of American products or companies that are relying on them for a supply chain now no longer have a active supply chain. So you look at like a Apple, or you look at a Nike or Under Armour. All made in China. The parts the shoes are made there. The microchips are made there, all made in China. And now the workers are not allowed to go to work because I'm sure in China, they'd march you out into a field and arrest you. I'll be nicer. They'll take you out and arrest you. But you listen to your communist government. You don't have the option to not do what they tell you to do.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden your supply chain. So now you've got this normal correction happening, exasperated by a supply chain issue, exasperated by margin calls. And then you add on the fear because now it leaves China's borders, and you've got Iran as a major hotbed. You've got Italy as a major hotbed. Now you've got Europe as a whole is being locked down. You and right? So now we're looking down, and here we are. We're in the studio day on the 17th.
Yeah,
I
St.
think we're
Patrick's Day.
St. Patty's Day. We're in green.
I'm not. Yikes.
Hold on. Gonna pinch you.
Is there green on here? Yeah.
Actually, I touched you.
Oh, gee.
See?
Oh, heavens. Ooh, what kind of
Don't worry
sanitizer you got there?
It's got Legacy on it.
Look at Legacy Mutual.
Isn't that weird that I just washed my hands? But I mean, that's the world we live in today. It's on the 17th, and already you've got San Francisco's locked down and 7 surrounding counties. I talked to my aunt this morning in Pittsburgh, and they're locked down. Lots of major cities, no bars are closed, restaurants closed.
So what's the status here in San Antonio?
Today, and this will be interesting to compare to 2 days from now.
Yeah.
1 hour ago, I got a text that Amazon is no longer shipping except for, food and medical stuff.
And that is like, to me, I was thinking, why? Because, H-E-B's and all the grocery stores, right? They're all bare on the shelves.
They're all bare. Toilet paper, good luck in 2 weeks.
Correct. And my thought was, why are people not, well, actually, this was 3 days ago. Why are people not ordering from Amazon? Because we do our subscribe and save, and we just got both of our shipments. And so for me, when I heard Amazon was down, I'm like,
oh
no.
Maybe we'll get out of here, and that's misinformation from Russia that's been published. But the word is that Amazon just ceased shipping.
And our kids,
school's out till April the 3rd for Comal, I think it is.
April 6th for Northeast.
So the world's changing. So yeah, it's scary out there. I've got a young at heart elderly parents, 70s for my dad and my mom. I've got asthma. My dad has asthma. So over 70 with asthma, scary time, and he's in California.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is how you handle it is really the big question. But this is a financial conversation. So what do you do? What do you not do? Okay.
Yeah.
So prudent things. Where you start with stocks.
Okay.
You don't sell at the bottom.
Don't sell at the
bottom.
Don't
sell at the bottom. In fact, I've gone out every other week since this started. So I think it's end of January. I'm actually buying the stock picks and putting money with my
You are
financial
doing that.
planners
Okay.
on the way down. Yes.
Okay.
Because do I think Amazon's going to go out of business? No, I don't think Amazon's going to go out of business. Do I think that iPhones are going to cease to exist? No, Apple's going to be just fine
Better get
eventually.
that flip phone back out.
Right.
Flip phone.
I think I said Amazon earlier. I meant Apple for Chinese microsystems coming over. But my point is that whether it takes 3 months or 6 months or a year, they're going to recover. So I look at it as a great opportunity if you've got spare cash to buy in and buy your companies cheaper, right?
Okay.
One of the quotes I
So
always...
hang on really quick. So you said if you have spare cash.
If you have spare
what
cash.
does that mean though? Like for real, what does that mean? Does that mean like...
So
is there an
as
amount?
long as you're still... So remember, in theory, we want to have some cash reserves. So I think it's prudent at this time to have some cash reserves, and literally both in checking account, but also literally cash. Get some cash from the bank and put it in your pocket. Not a lot. No run on banks. None of that craziness. Don't take everything out of your bank either. Like that would make the problem even worse. But having some cash in hands.
So does this go back to the 3 to 6 month survival number type stuff?
Yeah, you have your 3 to 6 month survival number handy for things exactly like this. If you've got your 3 to 6 months, we're being told we're gonna be locked down for 2 weeks to 8 weeks, right?
Right.
And maybe it goes to 3 months, but there's the point. We have 3 month survival numbers, and we're not going to be spending money at the movies, and we're not going to be eating out.
Right.
So you're going to be having the money in your survival
bare amount,
for survival.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're in a fortunate situation where there still is a paycheck, then that's what I mean by the spare cash. So when my money comes in, when my paycheck comes in, I'm taking a third. And what I mean by that is a third is going to go to just reserves, beef up that money market just a little bit more than normal. A third of every paycheck is going to go to extra cash in hand. A third of it, of the spare, I would say would be to, keep on investing, dollar cost average on the way down, take advantage of cheaper stock market prices because you make a lot of money when it turns back around. Not at the expense of you being able to take care of you and your family.
Okay.
But if you've got you've got your reserves, you don't feel stressed there, then you throw some extra money in as you go. And then the last third is at your discretion. So yes, you still have to service some of your debts. I will tell you one cool thing that Trump did today, the 17th, was, and I don't want to give credit to just Trump, but the administration just approved. If you have a tax burden, so you're filing your taxes here April 15th, if you have a tax burden up to $1 million, there is a 90-day deferment.
Wow.
So you don't have to pay your taxes that you owe up to $1 million for an individual, up to $10 million for corporations.
Wow.
For 90 days to create extra cash flow because there's going to be people that lose their jobs or are not going to be able, they're going to have to take unpaid vacation depending on the industry that they're in.
Wow.
But that's an example of how big of a decision they're making. So let's go into the Fed. And
they made that really fast then.
That was today. Yeah, that was very, very, but it's important to understand that there's a gravity to the situation that's important because most people aren't prepared.
Right.
So the timeliness of this podcast is super interesting to me.
Super interesting.
I wish we started last January than this
Always,
January
right?
because it would be more helpful. But this is why money management works or is important because no one plans. My dad would tell me all the time, no one plans an accident. No one plans the coronavirus to pop up and shut down everyone's business. No one plans that. So being prepared and making better decisions, I think that this will actually correct some of the mentality of Americans when it's all done with.
Yeah.
Into, that really sucked not being able to pay some bills while we were in a stressed out situation living at home for 3 months or 2 months or 1 month, then they'll probably budget better afterwards, right? Like you look at any grandparent or great grandparent that came out of World War II or World War I, they didn't throw anything away. My wife's mother, love her to death. The German mentality from New Braunfels has probably never thrown away anything ever because one day I'll probably use that. One day I might need that, right?
Yeah.
And now, we're in this society of throw everything away. Like declutter 3 times a year, just get rid of it.
My grandmother, she passed away 2 years ago at 91, and she and my grandpa literally built their life on the envelope system.
That's awesome.
I mean, and she always said, you got to pay yourself first. You got to pay yourself first. But she was very frugal, and she was very clear about, necessity versus extra and waste. And it was because of that era, that time period. And so it's interesting that you say that because I think that there is some opportunity for that, honestly, to change some behaviors. And
I think, again, we said in one of the first 2 episodes, people don't make changes till there's pain.
Right.
Well, there's some pain coming.
Little pain.
There's some pain coming. Little pain. That's a silver lining. It'll probably make some changes for the better, honestly, but not to make any light of, people will be gravely ill, or worse. So, so going back to what to and not do. So the last third I said a third you save, a third you might invest if you've got it. The other third is up to discretion, right? Here's what I mean by that right now. You might, first of all, you still have to service other debts. Thank God you don't have to pay your taxes right away. 90 days from now you will, unless they prolong that. But you still have to make your minimum payments on your credit card. So if that's that third, so be it. You might be even more conservative and save additional cash, because I think there's going to be great opportunity in investing in real estate and in real estate and in the market in the coming months or years. So that's not a horrible idea. But the last piece of the puzzle is I think it's a great season to give and take care of people.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, I was talking to a buddy of mine named Grover from Colorado. They're already starting to see the early signs of lockdown as well, and the early signs of layoffs. So his brother-in-law got laid off today, unannounced.
Oh my gosh.
And you're looking at that, it's like, well, I've got roughly 250 employees at Legacy.
Yeah.
We're not laying people off right now, thank God, but there's going to be spouses of our little family that are going to need help. And so look at small business owners, Katie that works with our team, they've got a bar in New Braunfels. There's not going to be a whole lot of people going to bars if the bars are shut down, and already it's slowed down.
I know.
So when you think about the look for opportunity to take care of people, it can't be this hoarding mentality. It's we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. No one gets to hide from the invisible disease. It's coming. It's going to affect a whole lot of us. It shouldn't be afraid of it, but you should take note of it, and it's the opportunity to kind of bind together too, right?
Yeah. So let me recap that, because I think that was really good. So basically you're saying so the plan is, right, in layman's terms, with the money that you have, think of it a third, and a third. So 1/3 of the money that you have coming in should be to stock your float accounts, which is 3 to 6 months of survival number, living expenses. So keep stocking that. The second third could be to continue buying in stocks and investing. Mm-hmm. And the last third, to obviously continue paying off debts that you owe, saving additional cash to protect yourself even further, or to invest in some of the opportunities that are coming up could be coming up in real estate, or to give and take care of people.
Yep. Yeah, I think
is that correct?
There's family discretion there, but I think you should look at it on a paycheck by paycheck, right?
Okay.
Yes, you don't do the world any service if you can't take care of yourself, and now somebody else has to take care of you. So the first third has to be at least to take care of you and that, and it might be the last third too would be you're behind, so stack some more money away. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we're gonna need to take care of some other people too, right?
So what do you think about prescriptions and things like that? And the reason this comes up is because, obviously Weston being a type 1 diabetic, thank goodness everything is kind of falling at a good time, quote unquote, for us, right? We get shipments and stock and supplies in 3-month increments. Yep. Well, it's mid-March. And so everything showed up.
Good.
Thank God. Right. Yep. But how does that affect? I mean,
I think it's very smart. So I am not a weirdo I'm not going to say weirdo is a wrong word, because I do believe in thinking ahead in generals, but I'm not a survivalist, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I had an interesting conversation. So I'm just going to kind of share a little bit about this, because I think it's interesting to note. So I was on the plane about 5 years ago with a random guy I was sitting next to. And, you get to talking eventually, because I like people, and I start talking to him. And he was a prepper, and this is 5 years before prepping was really cool, right?
Right.
But he was definitely a prepper, and we were just chit-chatting, and he found out that, I had some personal property, and He said, well, what do you have stored on it? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so he tells me enough details about all the stuff he's doing. I was like, wow, you are a weirdo. That was my first thought.
Right.
Because the end of the world
it's hard
is near.
it is hard to think. It's hard to imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can't, the brain protects you from thinking about the worst, right? Because it's a scary place to think about because you'll wake up in nightmares and cold sweats. But one thing he did say to me that was super interesting was he said, well, Josh, do you pay for insurance? I said, of course I do. He said, well, what kind of insurance do you pay for? I said, well, I've got car insurance. He said, well, how much do you pay a year? I was like, I don't know, like $1,200. I said, well, I've got homeowner's insurance. And he's like, how much is that? I said, oh, $2,400 a year. And he's like, do you have life insurance? I said, yeah, I pay a lot of money for that. And disability insurance and umbrella insurance and rental property insurance and. He's like, so how much do you like spend on all that stuff a year? I was like, I don't know, like probably $30,000-$50,000 a year in insurances. And he's like, and you haven't even insured the worst case. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, a lot of things you're talking about are like you replace a car, you replace a house, like even life insurance, like you're dead. Like
you're dead.
Like
that's not really, you're taking care of your
you're
peeps,
taking care of your family. But he said, how much are you investing for like if you are wrong and I am right, maybe there is a disruption, right? And I was told, say what a disruption is. And he said, well, like, and his use was, like the electrical grid goes down for 3 months or whatever. He said, do you know that the average person only has 2 days of food and supplies in their pantry? This is so weird that I'm talking about this, right? So this is 5 years ago. And he's like, well, so, if you just set aside a couple $100 a month or $100 a month and you just slowly bought up some stuff, like, buy some medical supplies, buy some extra food, just throw some extra cans in the pantry, I'm an asthmatic. So don't just have one inhaler, like
have a few,
a few of them and have them in multiple places in your car, in your house, at your work. You would just be better prepared. And that's insurance to me. I was like, I've never heard it said
that is
that
a
way.
Great analogy.
It's like you're just creating insurance. So my point when we're talking about like, what could you do? Like, I'm not freaking out about coronavirus. I am taking note about it.
Right.
And I'm concerned for my family and of course, my kids.
Sure. I was telling you yesterday, like I typically do not get hyped up. Yep. My theory because of my precious mom, she's like, don't give it energy. We're going to be okay. Yep. Just keep your mind positive. And so it takes kind of a lot to rattle me. And I haven't been rattled until, I don't know. Yeah. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. I was like, you don't
want to do the podcast.
No, I said we probably just need to be prepared that it might not happen, especially if like poor Gabe didn't want to come in and like deal with us.
Right. It's a real conversation.
It is a conversation. And, and then I think about, gosh, not that I would want any of my children to be sick, but there's one that could just be a lot worse than the others. Yep. And so you start to like, okay, like the hype is getting to me and I don't want to think it's just hype. Now I don't want to bury my head in the sand. I don't want to freak out, but what do we need to be doing and not be, just gallivanting around like nothing's wrong,
So I want to take this back. I love that you said that because I want to tie this all back into what's the government doing to respond, not just the coronavirus, but let's talk about our money.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our finances. Let's talk about the stock market in general, because understanding that piece is super important too. And there's a line that's not mine, but it's be greedy when people are fearful, be fearful when people are greedy, right?
Be greedy when people are fearful.
Be fearful when people are greedy. So end of 2019, everyone made over 20% in the market. What did everyone do early January? Doubled down, right? People are throwing money in the market. That is a sign to be fearful. And clearly,
oh my gosh,
that worked, right?
Yeah.
But the flip side is, are people fearful now?
Yes.
Yes. That's why it's good to think in terms of super wealthy people make a lot of money in down markets. Mm-hmm. Like there was a very few people that bet against mortgage-backed securities back in 2007 and 8 that are billionaires now, right? They bet against the housing at the peak of the housing and the decline of the, when the bubble burst, they're the ones that capitalized because they were greedy when people were fearful and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So what does that mean, or how can you take advantage of that? Well, let's talk about what the response by the U.S. government's been, because people need to understand what it means when the news says, Fed fund rate 0%, right?
Yes.
Because it's not understanding this is a part of the problem, right?
Right.
So a couple weeks back, Fed slashes fund rates by a half point. So it went from 1.25 down to 0.75 roughly.
Federal funds rate.
The federal funds rate, right? So the federal funds rate is the rate at which banks borrow money from the Fed for overnight money, access to monies. You got to think short term. So what
So
that
it
really
went
affects.
from, say that one more time. So it went
It went from like 1.25 to 0.75. That's not even right. It went from 1.5 to 0.5. That's what it was.
1.5 to
1.5 to 0.5. Yeah, because it was 1/3 of what they had in their barrel.
Wow.
So it went from 1.5 to, say it one last time. Scratch. Here we
Scratch.
go. 1.5 to 1. That's what it was 3 weeks ago.
1.5 to 1. Okay.
Yes. So that's what happened a couple of weeks ago. And then it followed up with this past Sunday. So if you're listening to it this week, literally last Sunday, you all heard it went from 1 to 0, right? So it was in this range of 1 to 1.25. Now it's from 0.0 to 0.25%. So literally the cost to borrow money at the Fed to the banks, from the banks to the Fed, is 0, right?
That's why people are emailing us asking
Yes.
if they can have a 0% interest rate.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
No, it is not tied to long-term rates.
not tied.
I've had this conversation 300 times in the
Gabe,
last 2 days.
Gabe, stop asking, okay?
What it's tied to is short-term rates, though. So where you get immediate reprieve when the Fed drops is you'll typically see credit card rates are a little bit lower. Car loans will end up being a little lower.
Okay.
Student loans, short-term. Just think short-term.
So the federal fund
Right.
rate equals
The
short
reason
term.
why mortgage rates went down starting about 3 weeks ago is because of typically when the stock market goes down, rates go down, right? That's what happens naturally. Now, what happened, interestingly enough, is last week, as in the week of the 10th of February, the 5th to the 12th time frame
February or March?
of March. Shoot, we're in March now. 5th to the 12th of March, interest rates actually went up. Okay, at exactly the same time as this is mortgage interest rates.
Mortgage.
At the exact same time as the Fed says 0%, biggest drop, 1 point. Now we're down to 0 in the federal funds rate. So people are waking up on Monday morning saying, "Hey, mortgage interest rates are down."
Right.
It's not correct. The normal media is a couple weeks behind when it comes to advertising of interest rates. The lowest mortgage rates were actually 2 weeks ago. Last week, rates started going up. Why did that happen when the stock market is going down is the really crazy question, right?
Right, because you just said that
when the
typically
stock market's plummeting, which it is, it's like 2,000 down, 1,000 up, 2,000 down, 1,000 up, right?
And the rates follow.
And the rates follow. So it was doing that for a while. And then all of a sudden last week, rates started going
Rates
up,
are going back up.
which is weird. Well, the reason is because of illiquidity in the market. Okay. So typically if people are panicking and pulling money out of the stock market, they have to place it somewhere. They're going to typically put it into treasuries or mortgage-backed securities, considered to be safer investments, right? So that makes some return. Well, there was created this illiquidity in the market because a couple things are happening. I don't want to bore everyone to death, but bottom line is that one thing is people are going to banks and trying to take their money out. That's part of it.
Like going to Bank of America and saying like, I need my money.
When people get scared.
Like that's what you mean. You don't mean
That's a small part of it, but yes. But literally,
stocks.
some people are just going there and selling everything. Give me all my money because I want it underneath my mattress, right? Which again compounds the problem.
I was going to say that's going to be a real problem when when it corrects and everybody wants a mortgage. Then
So you've got that going on, and then we saw it like crazy couple of days where there were some days where 15-year mortgage rates were the same or higher than 30-year mortgage rates. So you've got this inverse relationship.
So crazy.
Because basically there was no one wanting to buy that space. So on Sunday, the Fed or Trump came out and talked about 3 things that the Fed did to improve the situation. Okay. The first thing they did was they dropped the federal funds rate by a point. Okay. Right. We said it went from 1.0 down to 0 basically. Okay. So that didn't directly impact interest rates. But what they also did in the same breath is they bought $500 billion of treasuries. The Fed bought $500 billion of treasuries, and they pledged to buy $200 billion of mortgage-backed securities to create liquidity in that space.
So number 3 was
$200 billion of mortgage-backed securities.
Okay.
Right. So basically what's happening is the government's saying, oh crap, we can't have mortgage rates going up. We can't have this We've got to give safe spaces for people to keep their money parked and to slow down this fleeing from the stock market, both sides. So we're going to promote some spending by dropping the federal funds rate. We're going to slow down this rise of interest rates in the mortgage market by buying treasuries and buying mortgage-backed securities. And they take it a step further, and they literally say that they're not going to let it's called quantitative easement. It's what the Fed does when they don't want to go further, like into a negative rate of return. Like you can literally go below zero. Other countries have. We don't want to do that because there's long-term effects I don't need to go into. But the quantitative easement is in like and kind. We can create the same impact by buying these treasuries and buying these mortgage-backed securities, right? So what happens? We wake up on Monday morning thinking the stock market's going to be saved and the interest rates are going to be saved. And what actually happened was stock market went down even further. I think, a couple 1,000-point drop. We hit the circuit breaker twice, or at least one time this week, maybe twice this week, where it's a stop loss. When the stock market is free falling too fast, you just hit a certain threshold. And
I learned that term yesterday.
Yeah, and literally there's a circuit breaker that throws at the stock market to stop everything. Hey, stop all trading, suspend it for 15 minutes. Let's figure out what's going on before we reopen again, to kind of protect to keep that emotion-based fear selling, all that stuff kind of or at least give a pause button. So that happened. And that's right after we did a 1-point drop in the federal funds rate, which in theory should have propped up the stock market. Didn't happen. Why? Because no matter how much money you throw at the stock market, it doesn't fix the fears that the coronavirus is causing. Stop.
So if the coronavirus was not around, would these three things, they would have done them anyway? Or do you think
they did that based on previous success? These are examples of things that they did back in 2008. In 2008 was the last time that we were actually buying treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. We stopped doing that for a decade.
So these items,
and we were raising the federal funds rate for the last 10 years as well.
So they did these things separate of the coronavirus, or is it coronavirus all separate?
This is economic stuff to fix a falling stock market and rising interest rates in the mortgage market, right? But so these are economic activities that we can do, the Fed can do to solve the problem, but it's not quickly solving the problem because there's this additional separate underlying emotional issue, which is I'm scared to death of this unknown virus, right? So that's what we're dealing with.
It's so interesting that everything we've been talking about ties back to emotion and money, emotion, money.
Emotion. It's crazy. And so and that's where and that's where we are today, because then I'm still scared, and there's maybe 100 people listening to this saying, "Yep, I'm that person. I'm scared too."
Yeah.
Hopefully you didn't sell your retirement yet. Predatory things start to pop up right now, by the way, like I'm not going to say gold is predatory, but you'll start seeing a lot of infomercials about buying gold right now.
Okay.
There's a space for it. I do have a little bit of gold.
Yeah, we talked about it last episode. In episode 2, we talked about.
There's a space for it, but bottom line is that if you bought gold in 2008, you missed out on a 400% rise, and you made no money in gold in the last 12 years.
Okay.
So it's a safe harbor. It is good for worst case scenario, like we are a year from now, and there's still no commerce. Okay, that's.
But you're still talking gold bars,
like physical, tangible in your hand stuff. Which what are you gonna really do with that? And people with guns will come take it from you anyways, right? Like what do people do that are really hungry and have no money and their baby's crying for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
They go take their neighbor's stuff. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So we're not there because we're Americans and we freaking band together, damn it. Like whoever's listening.
That's right.
Cool your roll. It's going to be okay. But it's, I think that there's some excellent opportunity in real estate. I think there's some excellent opportunity in the market moving forward. So let's talk about real estate for a second, because mortgages are one of them.
Let's talk about mortgages.
This is going to be a problem for a lot of people, and it's a good problem, but it's a problem. One of the industries that is not going to be unemployed right this second is the mortgage industry. And the reason is rates are at unprecedented lows as we speak. There's 2 weeks ago was probably the lowest rates have ever been. Last week rates went up a little bit. The Fed stepped in and helped out with some quantitative easing. Rates are on the way back down again right now. Bottom line is basically think rates are in the threes.
But
There
today,
are massive
are they?
spike. Yeah, they're in the threes right now. They're
Are
back in
they?
the threes. Yeah, they would gone up over 4% last week. They were in the low threes and twos the week before. It's this weird up and down, up and down. Massive movement, just like you see the stock market where there's like a 2,000 point spike one way or the other. We're seeing the same kind of volatility, unprecedented volatility in the mortgage market as well.
What was that
But
funny?
rates are
like that text that we got right before we got here.
Yeah, rates were in the fours, and they kind of back to normal on last Friday, and now they're back in threes again. So my point in saying this is there's, depending on the article you read, the last one I read was that at this moment in history, 60% of all Americans that have mortgages can and probably should refinance. 60%.
60% of all Americans.
Yeah, of all Americans with loans, home loans specifically, can and probably should refinance, right? So you're listening to this, do not call your mortgage broker today. The analogy I can give you is try and go get toilet paper today because there's none available. Here's why I say that. The entire mortgage industry, all banks, all mortgage companies are prepared to handle roughly $2 trillion in loans a year, of which about half, more than half, is typically purchase business, like you're buying a house. Okay, so
this is nationwide.
Nationwide.
$2 trillion.
All banks, all everything. So think like a trillion is for purchases and $1 trillion is for refinances.
Okay.
Call it that.
Nationwide.
And we just said that there's 10 trillion in loans that can be refinanced. 10 trillion
my gosh.
in loans that can be refinanced right now. Okay. And they all got wind of this because the news is saying crazy low rates, Fed drops to zero, and people think rates are zero, which they're not. But there is truth to people can and should refinance, but people are now going to try. It's like think like a snake, a boa constrictor.
Yeah.
That just ate a pig. Okay. So what's being attempted right now is a couple $1 trillion worth of loans are trying to do loans simultaneously in a 2-month period of time at exactly the same time as the coronavirus comes out and people are not working anymore. Right? Appraisers are going to be in short supply. Title companies are going to be in short supply. Inspectors are going to be in short supply. Some realtors are going to say, screw it, I don't want to be meeting with lots of people because I don't want my hands to get dirty and I'm scared for my kids. There's sellers on the market that are going to...
Well, and let's just talk about really quick that the kids are out of school.
Kids are out of school, yeah.
And
then there's literally listings I'm aware of right now that are being canceled because they don't want these random people coming through their house. Right. Yeah.
And parents can't work. And realtors with kids that are home from school can't... I mean, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it.
But... those are compounding issues, but the bottom line is that it's just simply going to be impossible to take care of every person that wants to refinance. That's why I use the analogy of everyone does need toilet paper, but they cannot get toilet paper today. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the answer there is it's worth inquiring about, and if you're going to inquire about it, be prepared to get all your documentations in.
Yeah.
To be fully ready to do it, and hopefully you have somebody valued that can give you good advice, that watches the market, that times it better than most, because the actual bottom in the market last time around, like is in 2 weeks ago, about 48 hours. It's about 48 hours of the lowest ever, right? And so people either randomly called in that day and the loan officer happened to answer the phone and they were actually able to pre-qualify them and lock it, which is a few people.
Sure.
Or they missed it. So the better advice is if you're going to start inquiring about this stuff, you want to get with the loan officer, you want to get your documentation in, you want to be ready to pull the trigger if the loan officer is actually going to watch the market for you, because it went up since 2 weeks ago and now it's on the way back down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so the question is, do you have somebody that's going to watch that for you?
Watch it for you.
And you don't wait. Like if you are able to do it, if it makes sense.
You got to be ready to do it.
You got to be ready to do it. So there's opportunity there because now we're talking about decreasing our monthly survival number in most cases, right?
So how do you feel about, people shopping multiple lenders? I mean, is that I know that.
How do I feel about it?
Well,
I think that my general answer is that of course you want to be an informed consumer. I get that. That being said, I can tell you of several people that I was talking to on literally the lowest day the market's ever been that wanted to keep shopping. And 3 days later, they came back
Missed
and they
it.
said, hey, you had a great rate. And I said, yep. And it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And the rate was literally half point higher. And it's like, that does not exist.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about, this is where I'm trying to say, if it makes sense at the time that you talk to somebody, just do it.
Yeah.
Because there's also a critical point at which the industry is full.
And
the 2 trillion is 2 trillion. You can't go past the capacity of the industry, and you just won't be able to refinance because 3
you
and
can't
5,
get it
5
done.
months, you can't get it done.
You
right?
can't get it done. Yeah.
And so it is just to understand, like there's going to be a customer service issue in this industry.
I think that's where it goes to.
Yep.
We talk a lot about finding your trusted advisors, and almost letting people market to you, right? Like, like take people's advice, listen to the words that they're saying. That way, when things like this do happen, you have a straight pathway to the person that you trust.
Yeah, this is
that
not,
you
this
can
isn't
relax
a self-serving comment either. This is like, thank God I've got 2 financial planners that keep me freaking mentally clear.
Absolutely.
Like they call, this is literally what one of them called me and said. He said, hey Josh, have you seen the stock market today? I was like, yep. He said, have you looked at your portfolio today?
Nope.
I said, nope. He said, good. Keep not looking. Keep not looking.
Randy
at your portfolio.
goes, do you want to know what has happened in the last 3 days? I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't want to know what happens on the good days. It scares me. Like, no, I don't want to know.
No. But at least you got the advisors that you trust. That
they do. And it just makes me feel really like, I love when my friends, my family are able to call, and over the years we've built up enough trust where I can say, I got you.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. This is what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel different.
No way around
but
it.
I got you. Like, and know that they're like, okay, cool. And can thumbs up and we can take care of them. So,
and for the record, it's just important to understand, like, our industry, at least my company, we have to prioritize purchase business.
Have to.
Because it's something that if somebody is going to be selling a house and buying a house, people need to understand that I will for sure make sure that one closes on time and take priority for that situation so I don't have somebody homeless. Then I will, a couple of days delay or a week or 2 delay in closing to save a couple $100,
right?
Which is important.
It is super important.
It is something that I'm very clear about is our company serves purchase business first.
Yeah.
And we absolutely take care of our VIPs, our past clients, and our friends to help them out as well.
For sure.
But it's just the priority is, you got to be clear.
Well, somebody has a house and somebody potentially doesn't have a house,
that's exactly right.
People that are moving from different cities, states, relocating their families, so there's a lot of things to take into consideration.
So what's really interesting about this though too, is this goes back into that, when things get back to normal, because they will get back to normal. Okay. The adjustments in lifestyle, like, it's never a good time for me to go down to the bank and try to renegotiate my car loan.
Right.
It's never a good time for me to sit down and look at my personal family budget because it bothers me or I'm scared of it or whatever. It's never a good time. I'm always too busy to talk to a mortgage guy to see if I can refinance. I send all my money into my 401k, but I've never looked at it ever in 17 years. I don't have a financial planner giving me advice. Those actions have got to change. Like, you can be in such a much better situation by being proactive in these things than having the world happen to you and being forced to take action. Right. That's the difference. So I did want to talk about that. So at the end of the day, what happens next? I think the rates are going to be a little bit low for a while. I do think that there is now, I would not have said this 2 months ago, I do think that there is the possibility of a recession because of what's happening with business owners, small businesses, people not being able to work, quarantine, self-quarantine or mandatory quarantine.
Right.
All those things will impact the economy. But
and
here's
so
what's
as far as mandatory
too.
quarantine, so across the city, correct me if I'm wrong, bars, restaurants, and public establishments, their max is 50 occupancy,
daily,
right?
so by the time people listen, it might be different. But I'll just say today, for example, San
Today,
Francisco
Tuesday
and
the
7
17th.
counties around San Francisco, they are mandatory everything closed.
But
right?
same here in San Antonio, though. There's some bars and restaurants.
Well, there's a
50.
restriction of every city, because I know people are listening to this around the country. Every city is a little different. There could be a restriction of no more than 50 people or 250 people in a gathering place. It could be there are some areas that you cannot go into the restaurant at all to eat, but they can stay open to serve curbside. So that's an example.
Yeah.
I've got a loan that we're doing and turning at Legacy. Nikki's actually doing right now with a local 4-chain restaurant that they are opting to not serve.
Yeah,
but they are paying their cooks to stay on staff to do curbside.
Yeah.
And they're giving their waiters the option of working home delivery.
There you go.
So you can call in that restaurant, they'll bring it to you and leave it outside your door. But there's a lot of actions like that to try and preserve jobs and revenue, right? But we will get back to normal is the point. How fast that happens is anyone's guess.
Yeah.
I would tell anyone that's listening that if you're thinking about making any major financial decisions at all, buying a house, selling a house, not going through with a contract that you already have.
That's a good one. I'm glad you said
all that stuff. Like, consult professionals before you do so, right? Because there's opportunity in the moment. So I've got, I'll give you two perfect examples. I've got a family that I'm very aware of that's buying a second home locally, actually at the beach, that is very tight on reserves, can make it work, is already under contract, asked me the question, should I move forward? My answer was no, only because it's an option second home and they had no reserves.
Right.
So if this lasts longer than normal, it could be a drag on them personally. The flip side is I've got a Legacy loan officer friend of mine buying a second home in the mountains and asked me the exact same question. And we know our company's not closing right now,
right?
With all the business that's going on. He does have lots of reserves. He does have other options to tap into cash. If this went on for a year, he'd be okay. Fine. And he's getting a great deal on it because of what's happening in the market.
Right.
Move forward on it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a case by case thing, but both of them sought advice before they just decided. Right. And that's something that you look at on a case by case basis.
And get an outsider's point of view.
Absolutely.
I think, outside of a trusted advisor, getting somebody from an outside perspective that, especially when you're talking about real estate purchases, a lot of times, again, going back to the emotion, there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in home purchases or home sales. And so getting somebody to kind of give you an objective point of view to say, it's really good.
And maybe it's just an option putting less money down. I mean, I know people that are putting down 20% that they can qualify with 5% down. So just do the 5% down and keep your cash and then apply it towards your principal after the fact, as an example.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time in the world. I need to wash my hands again because it's been 2 minutes. It's just, I make light of it, but I've become quite the weirdo around that. But what other questions we missed? Gabe, since you happen to be in the room, just trying to think of what we might have missed as far as where to put your money, what not to sell. Watch out for, if it wasn't a good investment a month ago, it's probably not a good investment now. Like, watch out for gold, things like that. Like, don't.
So you can go and take out some cash.
Yeah.
And just sit with it.
Yeah. If it blows over in 9 days, put your cash back in the bank.
Put it back in.
Yep. And I'm not talking about take all your money out. I'm talking about just take out some handy cash to be available.
Okay.
I do think that non-perishable food, like, you don't want to do a run the market. But I think, again, prudence, I'd like to be able to stay longer in my house and not be around people. Just have a little extra canned goods. Canned goods are cheap.
Yeah.
Don't buy stuff that's perishable. Just buy stuff that you can put on the shelf and eat it for the next 90 days if you got it. No big deal.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, it goes back to, I think that what the world needs right now is some empathy.
Yeah.
I think it needs some calm heads. I think calm heads will prevail.
Here's the thing too. Whenever you are forced to be around your family and just kind of, look at the silver lining of, what can you do and how can you utilize this time with them? We've had a lot of fun in ways,
Board games.
We played Monopoly's Cheater Edition last night. I don't know if you've ever played that.
Monopoly Cheer? No.
Cheers
never.
Edition.
Oh, I thought you said cheer. I'm thinking like he was a cheerleader. I was like, nope, not going to do that.
MONO. No, like Cheaters Edition. It was so fun and we laughed so hard. So that's really fun. We have been making TikTok videos. So for anybody that follows me on social media,
you're kidding me.
My kids have made some TikTok videos. I have made some TikTok videos that have not been published, but just having fun with them. We put the treadmill went out in our little extra space. So I officially made it to my 2 months of consistently working out. So we moved the treadmill. So I now have the beginning of a space. The kids have been out there, working on that and clearing out toys and organize. So there's just we're getting some house projects done, just a few things here and there. So, and it, ultimately, we're getting a little bit more extra or a little bit extra time together.
Yep.
So, there's that.
I did think of one other thing that you can do in downtime. This is a great time to go through your subscriptions.
Yeah.
That you're not like the gym membership.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to the gym the next 60 days.
You're not going.
Put
them on hold.
Like, it's really prudent to watch your cash outflow right now.
Cancel or put them on hold. I mean, a lot of times they'll freeze them
put on hold or something like that.
Sure.
Sorry, Gold's Gym, but it just is what it is.
Well, they're going to, I think a couple of them have already closed anyway. So,
that makes sense. Yep. It's interesting times, but what they say, drastic times call for drastic measures.
Absolutely.
And I think that if you make the best of it, I think it's also a great time to be a good leader to your family and a good leader to your friends. Like I said, be empathetic and look for opportunities to take care of others because there'll be a lot of people that do not have the means and resources to take care of themselves.
So I just have a quick story about my beautiful mother, Sandy Mashinsky. So literally on her front doorstep, she has hand sanitizer and a sign and snacks and water for all the delivery men. Like, thank you for delivering goods to our house that we all need.
That's amazing.
That's so sweet. I saw that. I was like,
that's amazing.
That's so sweet.
Well, this is Josh and Bryn, and we're going to sign off. But stay calm. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Social distance. Don't be crazy. It's just not worth it right now.
Love your people.
Love your people. Love your people. Love your people. And we appreciate you. Like, subscribe.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends if you found this valuable.
And give us feedback.
Exactly right.
Feedback.
But, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye.